I got paid to leave SF. Like, what do I do for a living? Why did you leave SF? Who are you? Hello. I want everyone to just get some coffee, some tea. Let's sit down. Welcome to my channel. This is about to be a safe space, a space where we can just talk while you're doing laundry, while you're getting shit done. I'm Natalie. I am a lover of community, spirituality, first-gen Latina, and I just want to create spaces that are with people that have similar values. Welcome to my stream of consciousness. So we're gonna get into some more juicy questions that people have been asking me, and I'm like, I'm gonna do a YouTube about this. How did I even get on social media? One video blew up and it was like, growing up, was it? The video was called A Day in the Life of a 25-year-old Latina in SF, a non-tech edition. But let me explain where that came from. It frustrated me seeing all these tech people complain about jobs, complain about money. And I'm like, you can complain, kind of, but it annoyed me. So I kind of did a response video where I was like, I'm a non-tech person and I can do a lot of things in that stuff. There are a lot of free things. There are a lot of things that you can do out here. So then that started going up, and then people are like, wait, how did you find this place? And how did you find this place? And people started asking me like to review places. Then I came up with a series like, what are some events to do on the weekend? Events to do, why am I forgetting my videos? Like, why am I forgetting my videos? But events to do on the weekend in the Bay Area. Those started to blow up, and it was like a continuous series. And then I started seeing other cities do it. So if you ever see cities do like roundup events, especially if they have the word events, I'm not gonna lie, I came up with that. Like, that is one thing that I know I came up with. Yeah. And I remember being like, I need a green screen. Like, this is how I tell my friends about the events that are happening in the weekend. And this is how I would tell people. And then that kind of blew up. And like, seeing that trend kind of go viral in different cities was the coolest thing ever. And like, having those people who became viral in their cities follow me, like, we became mutual. So it was like this cool little moment where I realized like, okay, I have some traction and I'm getting brand deals. At the time I was like, I'm gonna work for a 9-to-5. Like, I thought that that's, after I quit my job, like that's what I needed to do. But there was just something in me that I'm like, no, I'd rather struggle with the amount of money that I have left in my bank account and create something out of it than going back to that life. I started realizing like, okay, so many people are asking me to review, but then there was a bunch of comments where people were asking me like, well, I don't have any friends to go with to these events. And I'm like, that's so real. Like, you're not the only person who has commented this. Then I started getting a bunch of DMs from people being like, hey, I would love to be friends with you, or let's go out for coffee. And I'm not lying, like in the beginning, like half of my friends from now to this day came from one message or one DM that they sent me. And I started doing that too. It was like, I would find people on TikTok like, hey, do you want to hang out? Would love to hang out with you. And that's where I started creating community off of TikTok. I started getting gigs off of like founders and people in those worlds being like, hey, do you want to work with us? Do you want to do this? And then it became like boom, boom, boom. Like, it became something where I'm like, I want to do something out of community events. And that's when February 29 came to mind. I did a launch party. The whole point of like the launch party and all of that was really to just get people to meet other people. I know with the pandemic, like I see a problem and I'm like, no one is doing anything about it. There was obviously social clubs, all of these things, but I'm like, what about accessibility? Like, what if we created things that I love to do while I'm traveling? Like, why aren't they here in the US? I can get more into that, but that's what I want to bring you guys behind the scenes, like creating a lifestyle brand, what that looks like. Like, I have assistants, I have friends who are always willing to help, and like how it takes a community, especially when you're first gen trying to create a brand, a business, like really honing in on your skills is the biggest lesson that I've gotten. So that's for another video. But my skills of like, I am personable, and I think my number one compliment that I've gotten was like, you're just like you are in your videos. And at first I started getting worried because everyone would tell me this, and I was like, wait, is that a bad thing? I thought everybody was like their video. I think that because my intention came from loneliness, came from like, I want to make friends, the people that I attracted were the exact audience that I always wanted. So I definitely feel like I'm pretty good when it comes to community engagement. I've worked in community for a long time, and I'm just excited to build a business. Like, I hope that in 5 years I can stitch this video and look at my younger self like right now and be like, I started this journey at 26 officially, 27, but really starting it here, like really broadcasting it to the world that this is what I want to do and this is my mission, this is my purpose at 27. I hope that the older version of me is proud of me right now, and I can stitch this one day, or like do a little Issa Rae video where it's like, oh, they bring up your video. Goals. I never really talked about what I used to do for a living. Even when I talk about it now, I talk about like my old job or whatever, but I was a comms regional manager. No, I was a comms associate, but I was basically managing 2 regions when it came to education reform. That's a really fancy way of saying I was basically doing social media, press, PR, all of that behind the scenes for educational campaigns. I don't know how to say this other than like I'm a freelance creative strategist, freelance content creator. I've done strategy calls, I've done consulting. Like, I think that my #1 skill that people do hire me for is like idea generation or promoting or marketing. Marketing, social media is my biggest thing that people ask me for. So I would say that that skill, not only have I used it in nonprofit world and in the political world, but I'm now using it for myself and other like creatives, like creative campaigns. So yeah. Why did you leave SF? Safety was one of the reasons why I left SF. I think that I want to be clear when I say that, like, I think the US has a safety issue. Like, I had already felt lonely, and I already felt like, okay, by the holidays, I'm gonna be back in LA. I don't know how, but I just knew that. And that's one thing about me, like intuition, the one thing that gets me. And I just knew, I was like, I'm gonna be back in LA. And I think that at the time I didn't know what was gonna drive me there, like what was gonna be the real kicker to get me back to LA, but everything had to crumble. Everything had to crumble. And my safety was the #1 thing that crumbled first. I was involved in a scene, and honestly, I'll put the video up. I haven't watched it in so long. This was the TikTok video right here.
This is what life feels like after a shooting. I never thought I'd be saying that, but I took some days off and want to be vulnerable with you. Don't ask me if I'm okay. I'm still processing what feels like a near-death experience, what feels like I'm lucky. I think everybody sees the news and thinks that happens, and if I'm being honest, a part of me never believed it could happen because I would be somehow prepared. I look out the window sometimes and a memory of me ducking on the floor, telling myself, if my leg gets hit, I'll be okay. I feel guilty sometimes for thinking, I'm fine, life is normal, but some things aren't. My nervous system was already high, and now I'm convincing myself that this happens to everybody. I should be lucky. I'm seeking therapy. I'm talking to people, trying to wrap my head around this. I didn't want to share this because people will think, but then why is she having fun? Life does go on for me, but now my invincibility feels different. I keep telling people that it's not that serious, but then I get into specifics and see the looks on their faces. Normalizing something like this isn't okay, and yet that's where my brain goes. I think about, what if a kid was there? What if this happened? What if I would have done this or that? Would I have avoided where I was? But I think every American just convinces themselves it was just the wrong place at the wrong time. And that's what it feels like after a shooting.
Yeah. So much of the SF experience is public transportation. And so when that got taken away from me, it changed the way that I was navigating SF. Like, I was telling people to go out and do this stuff, and that night that I went out and did something that I had promoted, that happened. So it automatically made me feel like I need to do something new. Like, I felt disconnected from that passion. Like, it was now tied to something that I went through. After that, I was like, that, and then where I was living, it was just, I loved it, but I do think that no longer made me feel safe to go outside to do things. And that was like my whole bit, right? It was like, she goes out, she takes us to things. And that was my step back to be like, what do I actually want to do? And how do I create these intentional spaces that allow people to feel safe going there and back? Safety was a big one, and that is a big reason why I moved back. And family, like during those times when you're going through something so difficult and not being around family, and feel like it was a near-death experience to me. I was like, and there was no one. Well, I experienced it with my cousin, but not being around family, which is like another kicker. The older I get, the more I do want to be around family. So now I'm back in LA, and I'm thinking about what else. I forgot to mention the freaking reason. Oh my god, that's happening, right? So on one hand, I have safety happening, and on the other hand, around March or April, same time comes around, our landlord had said that they were going to be selling the house, and I lived in a really cool like Victorian SF house, super cute. And lo and behold, the landlord's like, I'm gonna sell the house. And we're like, okay, sure. She's not able to sell the house because A, it's super old, she never fixed anything. And then there were some buyers who were interested, but they were like, maybe, would you guys be interested on a buyout? And we're like, what's a buyout? I'm quickly like, I'm gonna look this up because I've been manifesting money, and I know that we can get hella money from this. I look it up, and there's a bunch of articles talking about that there's this buyout negotiations that are really big and for tenants in SF. And so if you're a tenant in SF, just know you have hella rights, because we did so much investigation into this, and basically you have a lot of rights and you can't just get kicked out of your building. For ours, we had to get paid if they were gonna try to kick us out, essentially. And so we negotiated, we got a lawyer, most adult thing I've ever done. And essentially I was the one who kind of put my foot down. I was like, I already want to leave to LA. So I was like, as soon as possible, if they can get this down. So I was the one who kind of was like, originally September comes around and I want to be out of here. So the negotiations went through and did me well. It's given me the ability to take a step back, and I left SF. My roommates decided to stay, but that house was iconic. I feel like I could do a whole video, but like the way I manifested a house, guys, it was crazy. Like, not only did I manifest a house, but the person before me was a roommate, and she had lived there for 5 years, and she decided to leave the year before. I was like, girl, you missed out on some money. Because I got paid to leave SF. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, because it's gonna be a ride. It's gonna be a ride. I'm taking you on my travel vlogs. I want to take you guys into parts of my life that I feel like would be really cool to share. So yeah. Hello, my name is I swear the voice will come. I don't want this like YouTube fry voice. Though the wind needs to like work with me because it's getting crazy. I had to pull up a ask me questions on Pinterest. Like, what are things like, how do you introduce yourself? This feels like the first night of like when you're solo traveling and you're like, hey, like how many months have you been traveling? I remember telling everybody, I was like, I want a backyard, I want laundry, I want not a front yard or whatever, I want a garden space, I want all these things. And everyone's like, you're crazy, you're never gonna find that in SF. And guess who did? This girl. My first 2-story house where I was like fully living in it. It was amazing. Iconic. Party house where we hosted things, like dream place. This is the behind the scenes that people don't show you. Cut.